The alarm echoed through the bridge of the luminous dawn at exactly 0400 hours. Captain Valthari lifted his head from his rest cycle, his three eyes adjusting to the dim lighting. His communications officer, a young Quintarian named Flix, was already at her station, her tendrils moving rapidly across the console. "Captain, we have an anomaly. Large object detected in Sector 793. It's not on any navigation charts." Flex's voice carried a note of concern that made Valthari's spine ridges stand up. He moved to his command chair and studied the readings. The object was massive, roughly 3 times the size of his survey vessel. It was drifting without power, tumbling slowly through the void. But what caught his attention were the material readings. The hull composition made no sense. "Run the scan again," Valthari ordered. "Check for errors." Fleeks worked in silence for several minutes. When she looked up, her expression was troubled. "No errors, Captain. The hull is constructed from compressed titanium alloys, carbon composite materials, and something we can't identify. The density readings are off our charts. This ship is built like a fortress." Valthari's tactical officer, Moore, pulled up additional data. "Captain, the radiation shielding on that vessel is designed to handle exposure levels that would kill our crew in seconds. The temperature regulation systems can manage extremes from near absolute zero to temperatures that would melt our hull. This is not normal engineering. Who builds a ship like this?" Valthari wondered aloud. "And why?" The science officer, a careful Tellurian named Oss, spoke up from his station. "Sir, I've been analyzing the trajectory. This ship came from outside the galactic core, from the outer reaches, possibly beyond mapped space. According to decay rates on the hull scoring, it's been drifting for approximately 70 to 80 standard years. 70 years. An entire lifetime for some species." Valthari made his decision. "Set intercept course. We're going to board her. Prep the exploration team. Full environmental suits, maximum precautions." 2 hours later, Valthari stood in the airlock of his ship, suited up with 5 of his best crew members. The magnetic clamps had secured the luminous dawn to the derelict vessel. Through the viewport, he could see the scarred hull up close. It was covered in impact damage, radiation burns, and scoring from what looked like weapons fire. "Hull integrity is holding at the airlock," Flix reported through the comb. "Atmosphere inside reads as toxic. High oxygen content, nitrogen base, trace amounts of carbon dioxide. Pressure is standard. Temperature is cold, but manageable." "Toxic atmosphere?" Moore questioned. "Who lives in poison?" They breached the outer door and entered. The interior was dark, lit only by their suit lights. Emergency lighting flickered weakly along the corridors. The design was strange angular, efficient, with no regard for aesthetic comfort. Everything was built for function and durability. Valthari noticed something immediately. "Look at the doorways. They're reinforced, triple sealed, and these handrails, they're built for beings under high gravity." Dr. Thenna, the medical officer, ran her scanner along the wall. "Captain, the internal gravity plating is calibrated to 1.3 times standard. The beings who built this ship lived under crushing weight compared to garden world species. They moved deeper into the ship. Each discovery was more disturbing than the last. The engineering section was a maze of redundant systems, backup generators, and emergency protocols that assumed catastrophic failure was normal. The walls were lined with damage control equipment welding tools, hull patches, emergency sealant, all within easy reach. "They expected things to break," Oss observed. "They designed this entire ship around the assumption that systems would fail, and they needed to fix them quickly." In the crew quarters, they found personal items. Photographs printed on physical material, showing beings that stood upright on 2 legs, with bilateral symmetry and forward-facing eyes. Predators' eyes. The beings in the images looked soft, fragile, with no natural armor or weapons. Yet they were smiling in situations that looked incredibly dangerous, hanging from cliffs, diving into water, standing in front of explosive eruptions of Earth. What kind of species takes pleasure in danger? Moore asked quietly. They discovered the ship's data core and began downloading its contents. The language was unknown, but the translation protocols could work on it. Then Dr. Thenna called out from the medical bay. "Captain, you need to see this." Valthari hurried to the medical section. Thenna was standing in front of 3 cylindrical pods, each roughly 2 meters tall. Frost covered the transparent panels, but through it he could see figures inside, beings matching those from the photographs. "They're alive," Thenna whispered. "These are cryopods. 3 of them still have power. The life signs are weak but stable. Captain, these beings have been frozen for decades, and they're still alive." Valthari approached the nearest pod carefully. The being inside was small compared to him, perhaps 1.7 meters tall. It had pale skin, dark hair on its head, and features that looked almost delicate. But his scanner told a different story. The bone density was incredible. The muscle structure was compact but powerful. The cardiovascular system operated at pressures that would rupture a quintillion heart. What are they? He asked. Oss had accessed a nearby terminal and was reading the data. His voice shook as he spoke. "According to the ship's logs, these beings call themselves humans. They come from a planet called Earth. Captain, I've cross-referenced Earth's coordinates with the Galactic database. And Earth is classified as a Class 3 Deathworld. High gravity, toxic atmosphere, extreme weather patterns, tectonic instability, dangerous radiation levels from its star, aggressive native life forms, and a microbial environment that's actively hostile to most known life. Intelligence emerging from such a world should be impossible. It's never happened before." Valthari stared at the sleeping human. Yet here they are. They not only survived, they built starships. They traveled into space. Dr. Thenna ran more scans. "Captain, these beings are designed for survival in ways we can't comprehend. Their immune systems could fight off infections that would kill us in hours. Their healing capacity is extraordinary. They have redundant organs. Their brains are wired for rapid threat assessment. Everything about them screams adaptation to extreme hostility." Moore stepped back from the pods. "These are apex survivors. What happens if we wake them? What happens if we don't?" Valthari countered. "They've been asleep for 70 years. Their ship is dead. Their crew is gone. We're their only chance." He looked at each of his crew members. "We're going to transport these pods back to the luminous dawn. Dr. Thenna, prepare the medical bay. I want full monitoring, quarantine protocols, and every safety measure we have. You're really going to wake one?" Moore asked. Valthari looked again at the human in the pod. So small, so fragile in appearance, yet from a world that would kill him in minutes. They survived their world. They survived decades in cryosleep. They deserve a chance to survive this too. As they carefully moved the pods to their ship, Valthari couldn't shake one thought. The galaxy had strict rules about Deathworlds. They were quarantined, avoided, left alone. Life from such places was considered too dangerous, too unpredictable. But here was proof that intelligence could emerge from hell itself. And now he was about to meet a species that evolved. Where? Nothing should survive. The question that haunted him as they secured the pods in his medical bay was simple. What kind of beings would a Deathworld create? He was about to find out. Dr. Thenna had never been more nervous in her entire career. She stood in the medical bay of the luminous dawn, surrounded by monitoring equipment, emergency response systems, and 3 armed security officers. Before her, the cryopod hummed as it began its wake cycle. "Vital signs are rising," she reported to Captain Valthari, who watched from the observation window. "Heart rate increasing. Brain activity climbing. Respiratory system activating." The readings on her screen looked wrong. The heart rate was too fast, the blood pressure too high, the oxygen consumption too aggressive. For any known species, these numbers would indicate critical distress. But according to the human ship's medical database, this was normal. The frost on the pod's window melted away. Inside, the human's eyes moved behind closed lids. Fingers twitched. The being was returning to consciousness after 73 years of frozen sleep. "Metabolic rate is stabilizing," Thena continued. "Opening the pod now." The seal broke with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The lid lifted slowly. The human inside took a sudden, deep breath so deep that Thena's species would have collapsed from oxygen toxicity. But the human's lungs processed it without difficulty. Dark eyes opened. They were disoriented, unfocused. The human tried to sit up, moving with the careful slowness of someone who hadn't used their muscles in a very long time. He was male, with dark hair and features that matched the personnel files they had recovered. His name was Quan, age 29 when he entered cryo-sleep. Junior engineering specialist. Quan looked around the medical bay, confusion clear on his face. His eyes settled on Dr. Thena, and he froze. For a long moment, human and alien stared at each other. "Where?" Quan's voice was rough from disuse. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Where am I? Where's my ship?" Thena approached slowly, her translator rendering her words into human language. "You are safe. You are aboard the survey vessel Luminous Dawn. I am Dr. Thena. We found your ship drifting in space. You were in cryo-sleep. Do you understand?" Quan processed this information with visible effort. "How long?" "According to our estimates, 73 standard years." The human's face went through several expressions: shock, denial, grief. His hands gripped the edges of the pod, and Thena noticed how strong they looked, despite their small size. 73 years. That's not possible. Our mission was only supposed to be 12 years. What happened? "We were hoping you could tell us," Captain Valthari said, entering the medical bay. "Your ship was badly damaged. Most systems were offline. We found 3 cryopods with power, including yours." Quan looked at the captain, taking in his alien appearance without obvious fear. "The other 2 pods. Who's in them?" "According to your ship's records, Captain High and Navigator Day," Thena answered. Relief flooded Quan's face. "They're alive? You can wake them?" "We wanted to wake you first," Valthari explained. "We needed to understand more about your species before we proceed. Quan, you come from what we classify as a Class 3 Deathworld. Your biology is unlike anything we've encountered. We need to be careful." Quan nodded slowly. "Right, first contact protocols." "I understand." He tried to stand, wobbled, and caught himself on the pod. "How long until I can function normally?" For any other species, recovery from 73 years in cryo would take months, Thena said. "But your cellular regeneration is remarkable. Perhaps weeks?" "Weeks?" Quan looked surprised. "Our medical estimates said days. Maybe a week at most." He saw their expressions and added, "Is that fast for you?" "Impossibly fast," Thena admitted. Over the next few days, Quan recovered in the medical bay. The alien crew watched him with a mixture of fascination and unease. He healed at rates that defied their medical understanding. Bruising from the cryo needles faded in hours. Muscle atrophy reversed in days. His body seemed designed to bounce back from damage. The food situation became a problem quickly. Quan tried the standard nutrient synthesizer and barely managed 3 bites before he politely excused himself and threw up in the waste disposal. Thenna rushed to check him, worried about allergic reactions. "I'm fine," Quan assured her, looking embarrassed. "It's not your fault. Human digestive systems need complex proteins, specific minerals, particular amino acid chains. Your synthesizer is probably perfect for you, but for us, it's incomplete. What do you need?" Valthari asked, "Can you bring food stores from my ship? We carry emergency rations designed for long-term stability. They're not delicious, but they'll keep me healthy." When they retrieved the human rations, Thenna analyzed them and was horrified. "Quan, these contain compounds that are toxic to most species. High sodium levels, complex sugars, proteins that would be indigestible, and several trace elements that we classify as industrial contaminants." Quan examined the ration pack. "That's just food to us. Our bodies need these things. Earth's environment is harsh, so we evolved to extract nutrition from almost anything organic. What's poison to you is lunch to us." Fleeks brought him the ration pack. Quan opened it and ate with obvious relief. "Thank you. You have no idea how good actual food tastes after your synthesizer." "We're sorry our food made you sick," Fleeks said. "Don't be. You couldn't have known. Besides, I've been sicker. Way sicker." Quan saw their concerned looks and laughed. "No, I mean back home. Earth diseases are brutal. We all get sick as children, fevers, infections, viruses. It trains our immune systems. By the time we're adults, our bodies can fight off almost anything. You intentionally get sick?" Moore asked, disturbed. "Not intentionally. It just happens. Earth is full of microorganisms trying to kill us. So we adapted. Our immune systems treat every infection like war." Quan paused. "Wait, do your species not get sick?" "Rarely," Thenna explained. "Garden worlds have stable environments with manageable microbial life. Illness is uncommon." Quan looked thoughtful. "Huh, must be nice." As the days passed, Quan began to move around the ship, escorted by security. He was polite, curious, and cooperative, but the crew noticed things that unsettled them. He moved with predatory grace, despite his small size. His eyes constantly scanned for threats. When a pipe burst in engineering, everyone panicked except Quan, who immediately grabbed tools and sealed the leak with calm efficiency. "Don't you feel fear?" Oz asked him later. "Of course I do," Quan replied. "Fear is important. It keeps you alert, but panic kills you. On Earth, you learn early that staying calm in emergencies means survival. The scared child who freezes during an earthquake dies. The calm child who gets under a table lives. So we train ourselves. Fear becomes information instead of paralysis." One evening, Quan sat with Velthari in the observation deck, looking at the stars. "Captain, I need to ask you something." "Go ahead." "My crew. How many didn't make it?" Velthari hesitated. "We found 47 cryopods on your ship. 44 had failed. Only 3 still had power." "I'm sorry, Quan." Quan was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. 44 friends gone. We trained together, ate together. They had families waiting for them. He wiped at his eyes. But Hai and Day survived. That's something. That's more than nothing. "You're handling this remarkably well," Velthari observed. "What choice do I have?" Quan asked. "Breaking down won't bring them back. Grief is real, but I can grieve and still function. You do what you have to do. That's what Earth teaches you. You adapt or you die." Velthari studied the human. so small compared to most species, so physically weak by Deathworld standards. Yet there was a strength in him that had nothing to do with muscles or bones. It was mental, emotional, forged by a world that demanded constant survival. "Quan," Belthari said, "we'd like to wake Captain High and Navigator Day, with your permission." Quan nodded. "Please, they've been alone long enough. And besides," he smiled slightly, "High is going to want answers, and Day is going to make jokes about the situation. I could use their company." "What makes you so sure?" Fleeks asked. "Because I know them. High trained us for every possible disaster. She adapt. And Day has this thing where he laughs at danger. Says it's better than crying. They're strong people. We all are. We have to be." As Thenna prepared the other two pods for revival, Velthari realized something profound. The humans weren't strong because they were fearless or superior. They were strong because their world had given them no choice. Strength was the price of survival on Earth. And now, 3 survivors of that world were awakening in his ship, bringing with them all the resilience, adaptability, and determination that evolution could create. The galaxy was about to meet humanity. He hoped they were ready. Captain High woke with the efficiency of a military officer. Her eyes opened, assessed the situation, and locked onto Dr. Thenna with immediate focus. She sat up in one smooth motion, ignoring the weakness in her muscles. "Report," she said clearly. "Captain High, you're safe," Thenna began. "You've been in cryosleep for 73 years? Ship found derelict. Crew casualties. First contact with an alien species," High interrupted. "Quan briefed me through the intercom while I was waking." "Where is he?" Quan stepped forward from where he'd been waiting. "Right here, Captain." High looked at him, and something in her stern expression softened. "Good to see you, Quan. You held up well." "Thank you, ma'am." In the next pod, Navigator Day was waking up. His first words were, "Please tell me someone brought coffee." "We don't have coffee," Quan said. "We have alien food synthesizers that make you throw up, and emergency rations that taste like cardboard." Day groaned as he sat up. 73 years, and the food situation is still terrible. Some things never change. He noticed the aliens watching him. "Oh, hi there. I'm Day. Sorry about the coffee comment. It's this Earth thing. We're kind of addicted to caffeine." "Caffeine is a poison," Oz said automatically. "So is most of what we eat," Day replied cheerfully. "We build up tolerances. It's our specialty." The 3 humans gathered in the medical bay while Fennec completed her examinations. They spoke quietly together in their own language, supporting each other through grief for their lost crew. Velthari watched them hold a moment of silence, heads bowed, honoring their dead. When they finished, High turned to Velthari. "Captain, we owe you our lives. Thank you for reviving us. Now, how can we help?" "What do you need to know?" "Everything," Velthari admitted. "Your world, your species, your capabilities. We need to understand what we're dealing with." High nodded. "Fair enough. Let's start with basics. Where do you want to begin?" They gathered in the main conference room. The 3 humans sat on one side of the table, looking small compared to the larger aliens. But their presence somehow filled the space, a confidence that came from deeper than physical size. "Tell us about Earth," Belthari requested. High glanced at her crew, then began. "Earth is a Type G star system, 3rd planet from our sun. We have one large moon, which is unusual. It affects our tides, our weather, our geology. Our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, with trace amounts of other gases. To most species, that oxygen concentration is toxic. The gravity is 1.3 times your standard," they added. "We evolved under that weight. It made our bones dense, our muscles efficient, our hearts strong. When we visited garden worlds during our exploration phase, we felt light, fast. But it also meant any impact hit us harder back home. Our planet is geologically active, Quan continued. The continents move on tectonic plates. Earthquakes are common. Volcanic eruptions reshape our landscapes. We have extreme weather systems, hurricanes with wind speeds that can level buildings, tornadoes that tear apart cities, storms that flood entire regions. Fleeks listened with growing horror. How do you survive? We build strong, Hai said simply. Our structures are designed to withstand disasters. We have warning systems, evacuation protocols, emergency response teams. Children learn earthquake drills in school. We practice for catastrophe because catastrophe is normal. What about your biology? Thena asked. Your healing rates are extraordinary. A smiled. Evolutionary pressure. On Earth, if you got injured and couldn't recover quickly, you died. So the humans who healed faster survived to have children. After millions of years, we all descend from the quick healers. Our bodies have redundant systems, two kidneys when we only need one, a liver that can regenerate, bones that grow back stronger after breaking. You break bones regularly? Moore asked, disturbed. Not regularly, but it happens, Quan said. Falls, accidents, sports injuries. We break them, we heal them, we move on. It's just part of life. Hai continued the explanation. Our immune systems are aggressive because Earth's microbial environment is hostile. We're constantly exposed to bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites. Our bodies learn to fight aggressively. We develop fevers to kill infections temperatures that would cook the organs of some species. But for us, it's a medical response. We vaccinate our children, Day added. We deliberately expose them to weakened diseases so their bodies learn to fight. It's preventive warfare against illness. Oz was taking notes rapidly. This is remarkable. Your entire evolutionary history is a story of adaptation to extreme hostility. That's one way to look at it, Hai agreed. Another way is that Earth taught us resilience. We learned to endure, to adapt, to overcome. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived ice ages, predators, famines, diseases, and natural disasters. We're survivors by default. But you're not just survivors, Velthari observed. You built starships. You explored space. You created art and culture. We found music files, literature, images on your ship. How do you balance violence and beauty? Hai was quiet for a moment. That's the thing about surviving on a death world. You learn that life is precious because it's fragile. Yes, Earth is brutal, but it's also beautiful. We have oceans that span continents, forests that hold millions of species, mountains that touch the sky. We learn to appreciate beauty because we saw how easily it could be destroyed. We're not violent by nature, Day said. We're protective. There's a difference. When something threatens what we love, we fight. But fighting isn't our first choice, survival is. And sometimes survival means cooperation, not conflict. Quan nodded. Our history has wars, yes. But it also has incredible cooperation. When disasters strike, humans from across the planet send help. When one region starves, others send food. We compete with each other, sure, but we also understand that together we're stronger. Earth taught us that too. Thena had been running scans while they talked. Your stress responses are fascinating. Your adrenal systems produce compounds that enhance reaction time, strength, and focus during danger. You literally get stronger when threatened. Fight or flight response, Hai explained. When we're scared, our bodies flood with adrenaline. Heart rate increases, oxygen delivery improves, pain response decreases. It's an emergency override system. We call it an adrenaline rush. Do you feel fear? Fleeks asked. Constantly, they said with a laugh. Fear is how we stay alive, but we learn to function through it. Fear tells us something is dangerous. It doesn't tell us to give up. We assess the threat, make a plan, and act. Panic is what kills you. Controlled fear keeps you sharp. What about pain? Moore asked. Your tolerance seems extremely high. Quan shrugged. Pain is information. It tells us we're injured, that we need to address something. But we don't stop functioning because of pain. You push through it, fix the problem, then deal with the injury. On Earth, if you let pain stop you during a crisis, you die. So we learn to work through it. Velthari was beginning to understand. You're not fearless warriors. You're just experienced with danger. Exactly, I confirmed. Every human child faces dangers growing up. You learn to swim so you don't drown. You learn to climb carefully so you don't fall. You learn to check for dangers before acting. By the time we're adults, risk assessment is automatic. We're not brave, we're trained. What drives you to explore space? Velthari asked. Why leave your world if it made you so adapted? Day grinned. Because it's there. Humans are curious. We see something unknown, and we want to understand it. Staying safe is good, but discovering new things is better. Besides, if we only stayed where it was safe, we'd still be hiding in caves on Earth. We explore because it's in our nature, Hai added. Yes, exploration is dangerous. But so is staying still. Earth taught us that adaptation requires change, and change requires taking risks. So we built ships, trained crews, and ventured into the unknown. Not because we're fearless, but because we're curious and willing to take calculated risks. Fenna looked at her scans again. I need to ask something potentially offensive. Are you aware that your species would be classified as extremely dangerous by galactic standards? The three humans looked at each other. Quan spoke first. We kind of figured. We're stronger than we look. We heal fast. We handle pain well. And we come from a world that would kill most species in minutes. Yeah, we probably seem scary. But here's the thing, Hai said firmly. Dangerous doesn't mean evil. A tool can be dangerous if misused, but useful if handled correctly. We don't want to threaten anyone. We want to go home, reconnect with our people, and live our lives. The skills Earth gave us are for survival, not conquest. We're not interested in hurting anyone, they agreed. We just want to exist. If that existence scares some people, we can address that through communication and trust building. But we won't apologize for surviving our world. Velthari felt a deep respect for these small, dangerous, thoughtful beings. I believe you, and I think the galaxy needs to know about humanity. Not as a threat, but as proof that intelligence can emerge from anywhere, even hell itself. Hai smiled slightly. We prefer to call it home. But yeah, we understand your point. Earth is harsh, but it made us who we are. We're proud of that. The meeting ended with agreements for continued cooperation. The aliens would help repair the human ship. The humans would teach the aliens about Deathworld engineering and survival techniques. It was an exchange of knowledge between two very different peoples. As the humans left the conference room, Velthari heard Day say to Quan, "They took that pretty well. I was worried they'd lock us up." "They're good people," Quan replied. "Just scared. Can't blame them. Fear is information, not instruction," Hai reminded them, quoting her own earlier words. "They'll adapt, just like we did." Velthari watched them go, these children of Earth, so small, so dangerous, so fundamentally decent. The galaxy was about to change, and he had the privilege of witnessing it firsthand. Engineer Quan stood in the engine room of the luminous dawn, surrounded by curious alien engineers. He'd been invited to share human approaches to system maintenance. And what started as a simple demonstration had turned into something much larger. "This is your primary coolant system," Quan said, pointing to the main conduit. "It's well designed, efficient, clean. But I notice you don't have backup cooling." "Why would we need backup?" asked Rin, one of the engineers. "The primary system has never failed." Quan smiled gently. "That's the difference between our approaches. On Earth, we assume everything will fail eventually. It's not pessimism, it's realism. The question isn't if something breaks, but when. So we design for failure." He pulled up a schematic on his datapad, showing the human ship systems. "Look at our coolant setup. Primary system here, secondary backup here, tertiary emergency system here. If all three fail, we have manual override protocols and portable cooling units. We never assume things will work perfectly." The alien engineers looked disturbed. "That seems inefficient. All those extra systems take up space and resources." "They do," Quan agreed. "But they kept us alive when our primary coolant line got hit by microdebris. The backup kicked in automatically. We had time to make repairs because we'd planned for the worst. That's Deathworld engineering. Prepare for disaster before it happens." Over the next few days, Quan worked with the engineering team, introducing concepts that seemed strange to them. Redundant systems, emergency protocols, quick repair techniques. The idea that maintenance wasn't just about keeping things running, but about preparing for when they stopped running. Meanwhile, Navigator Day was working with the navigation team in the bridge. He'd pulled up a star chart showing a dense asteroid field between two systems. "This is your planned route," Day observed. "You're going around the field. That adds 3 days to the journey." "Of course we're going around," Flick said. "Flying through an asteroid field is suicidal. The collision risk is too high." Day nodded. "For most species, yes. But humans navigate hazardous zones regularly. Not because we're reckless, but because we developed techniques for it. Want to see?" He began showing them human navigation methods. Predictive pathing that calculated debris movement patterns. Real-time course correction using rapid scanning. Risk assessment protocols that identified safe corridors through dangerous space. Emergency evasion procedures for unexpected obstacles. "This is how we navigate near black holes, through stellar debris fields, in areas with heavy radiation," Day explained. "We map the danger, calculate the risks, and find the safest path through, not around. Sometimes the shortest distance between 2 points goes through hell, and we learn to navigate hell." Oz was fascinated, but concerned. "This requires split-second decision-making. What if you make a mistake? Then you die," Day said simply. "But the alternative is taking the safe route and running out of supplies, or avoiding opportunities because they're risky. Humans decided long ago that calculated risks were better than guaranteed mediocrity. We train extensively. We practice until it's instinctive, and then we trust our skills." Captain High's training sessions were the most intense. She'd proposed running emergency drills with the Luminous Dawn crew, and Velthari had agreed. Curious to see human training methods, the first drill was simple, a simulated hull breach in the cargo bay. High triggered the alarm without warning. The alien crew panicked immediately. They ran for emergency stations, but their movements were chaotic. Some froze, unsure what to do. Others called for help instead of acting. High watched with a critical eye. When the drill ended, she gathered everyone together. "What you just showed me is a crew that will die in a real emergency," she said bluntly. "Panic kills. Hesitation kills. Waiting for orders kills. You need to train until emergency responses are automatic. We know the procedures, Moore protested. We've studied the manuals. Knowing isn't doing, High countered. Your brain under stress doesn't work the same way it does in calm situations. You need muscle memory, automatic responses, trained instincts. Let me show you how humans train. She ran the drill again, but this time she walked them through it step by step. How to assess the breach quickly. How to grab repair equipment without thinking. How to work together without needing verbal communication. How to stay calm by focusing on the task, not the danger. On Earth, we practice emergencies constantly, High explained. Fire drills, earthquake procedures, storm protocols. By the time you're an adult, you've been through hundreds of simulations. Your body knows what to do before your brain finishes processing the danger. They ran the drill 5 more times that day. By the end, the alien crew was moving faster, more efficiently. They still weren't at human levels, but they were improving. Why do you push so hard? Fleeks asked during a break. We're a survey ship, not a military vessel. We rarely face real emergencies. High looked at her steadily. Because rarely isn't never. Because when something goes wrong, you won't have time to learn. Because your crew deserves to survive whatever happens. This isn't about fear, it's about respect. I respect you all too much to let you stay unprepared. Dr. Thenna was learning too, though her lessons came from observing the humans themselves. She'd been monitoring their health, fascinated by their biological responses. One morning, Quan came to Medical Bay with a minor cut on his hand from a sharp piece of equipment. Thenna immediately prepared to treat it, but Quan waved her off. It's just a small cut. I'll clean it and bandage it. No need to worry. Let me at least scan it, Thenna insisted. She ran her medical scanner and watched in amazement. The blood was already clotting. The surrounding tissue was already beginning the healing process. Quan, your body is responding to this injury like it's a major emergency. Yeah, that's normal for us, Quan said, cleaning the wound with antiseptic. Earth's environment is full of infectious agents. Any break in the skin is a potential entry point for disease. So our bodies react immediately clotting to seal the wound, immune response to kill any invaders, healing to close the breach as fast as possible. This is an automatic response? Completely. We don't think about it. It just happens. Quan applied a bandage. By tomorrow, this will be mostly healed. In 3 days, you won't be able to tell I was injured. Thenna documented everything. The rapid healing, the aggressive immune responses, the high pain tolerance, the efficient calorie processing. Every aspect of human biology was optimized for survival in a hostile environment. She shared her findings with the crew during a briefing. Humans aren't just physically adapted to their world, she explained. They're psychologically adapted too. They process trauma differently than we do. They can compartmentalize fear, focus through pain, and maintain function during extreme stress. It's not that they don't feel these things, they feel them intensely. But they've learned to work through them. How? Oz asked. Training and experience, High answered. She'd been invited to the briefing. Every human has experienced fear, pain, loss. It's unavoidable on Earth, so we learn to cope with it early. We develop mental resilience the same way we develop physical strength through exposure and practice. Isn't that traumatic? Fleeks asked gently. Sometimes, High admitted. But trauma handled well becomes wisdom. Pain processed correctly becomes strength. Humans don't avoid difficult emotions, we work through them. We have counselors, support systems, communities. We talk about our experiences. We help each other heal. That's part of survival too. Day added his perspective. Look, I won't pretend Earth is perfect. It's brutal, but it taught us something valuable, that you can endure almost anything if you're not alone. Humans are social creatures. We survive not just because we're tough, but because we support each other. The lone survivor is rare. The community that protects each other, that's normal. As the weeks progressed, the cultural exchange deepened. The aliens learned human techniques for problem solving, crisis management, and risk assessment. The humans learned about alien perspectives on cooperation, long-term thinking, and peaceful coexistence. One evening, Velthari found Quan in the observation deck, looking at Earth's coordinates on a star map. How far to home? Velthari asked. About 6 months at standard drive speeds, Quan replied. We were trying to pioneer a new route when something went wrong. I still don't remember what. The logs are corrupted. Will you go back to exploration after this? Quan thought about it. I don't know. 44 of my friends died on that ship. That changes you. But I also know that humans don't stop exploring just because it's dangerous. We'll assess what went wrong, improve our systems, and try again. That's what we do. We learn from failure and keep moving forward. You're remarkably resilient, Velthari observed. We have to be, Quan said simply. Earth doesn't give you a choice. You adapt or you die, and we're all descended from the ones who chose to adapt. That legacy is in every human. We're tough not because we're special, but because anything less than tough didn't survive to become our ancestors. Velthari understood then. Humanity wasn't a species of superheroes or warriors. They were simply the result of billions of years of evolution on a world that demanded the absolute best just stay alive. They were teachers now, sharing the hard-won lessons of their Deathworld with species who had never needed to learn them. And perhaps, Velthari thought, the galaxy needed these lessons. Because danger didn't only exist on Earth, it existed everywhere. And having teachers who'd learned to face it and survive it might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The humans had come from hell itself. But they'd brought with them something precious, the knowledge of how to endure. The distress signal came through at 0230 hours. Fleeks was on night watch when the emergency beacon lit up her communications console. She immediately called Captain Velthari to the bridge. Sir, we're receiving a distress call from a civilian transport vessel. They're under attack by raiders. Distance, 4 light hours. They're requesting immediate assistance. Velthari arrived quickly, still adjusting his uniform. He studied the data with growing concern. The transport was carrying 300 civilians, families, children, elderly. The raiders were a known group that operated in the outer sectors. Pirates who made their living stealing cargo and occasionally kidnapping passengers for ransom. How long until Galactic Defense can respond? Velthari asked. 8 hours minimum, Moore reported from Tactical. We're the closest ship by far. Analysis of our combat capabilities? Moore's expression was grim. Captain, we're a survey vessel. We have basic defensive shields and light weapons. The raiders have 3 attack ships, all heavily armed. If we engage, our survival probability is 12%. We'd be destroyed. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the math. They couldn't help without dying themselves. It was the cool logic of combat wanting to help. Wasn't enough. Captain High entered the bridge, followed by Quan and Day. They'd been awakened by the emergency alert. What's the situation? High asked. Velthari explained quickly. The distress call, the raiders, the impossible odds. I want to help, but I can't sacrifice my crew on a suicide mission. High studied the tactical display carefully. What if you had combat specialists aboard? People trained for exactly this kind of situation? We don't have combat specialists, Velthari said. But you have us, Day pointed out. We're not military, but all human explorers receive combat training. Space is dangerous. We prepare for pirates, hostile encounters, emergency situations. It's standard. Velthari stared at them. You're 3 people. They have 3 warships. Numbers aren't everything, Hai said calmly. May I see the tactical situation in detail? Moore pulled up the full scan. The civilian transport was trying to flee, but it was slow and unarmed. The 3 raider ships were pursuing, firing warning shots to force it to stop. They were converging from different angles, cutting off escape routes. Quan leaned over the display, his engineering mind assessing the field. There's a debris field here, remnants of an old mining operation. Heavy metals, irregular gravity, lots of visual obstacles. They traced a path with his finger. And the transport is heading toward a small moon with significant gravitational pull. The raiders are staying in open space, probably because their ships are too large to maneuver in close quarters. Hai nodded, seeing the same things her crew saw. Captain Velthari, our ship is still partially functional. Weapons systems are operational, and Quan has been working on the engines. We can use our vessel for this operation. Your ship barely has life support, Moore protested. We don't need comfort. We need combat capability, Hai said. Here's what we propose. We take our ship, use the debris field for cover, and engage the raiders using guerrilla tactics. We know how to fight in hazardous environments. It's what Deathworlders train for. We draw their attention while the luminous dawn evacuates the civilian transport. That's suicidal, Velthari said. No, it's calculated risk, Day corrected. Suicidal is engaging in open space with inferior weapons. Smart is using the environment as a weapon. We've done this kind of operation before. Not exactly this, but similar enough. We trained for asymmetric combat. Velthari looked at his crew. They were scared, uncertain. Then he looked at the 3 humans. They were calm, focused, already planning. This was what their world had trained them for, fighting in impossible situations and finding a way to survive. If I allow this, you could die, Velthari said quietly. People are dying right now if we don't act, Hai replied. Captain, we understand the risks, but we have skills you don't. Let us use them, please. Velthari made his decision. Do it, but the luminous dawn provides support. We're not leaving you out there alone. The next 30 minutes were a blur of preparation. The humans moved to their ship with practiced efficiency. Quan fired up the engines, coaxing power from damaged systems. They calculated attack vectors through the debris field. Hai armed their weapon systems and established secure communications with the luminous dawn. All systems nominal, Quan reported. Well, not nominal exactly. More like functional enough to not explode immediately. That's the human definition of nominal, Day joked, his hands flying across the navigation console. Course plotted. It's going to be rough. Rough is what we're good at, Hai said. She opened communications. Captain Velthari, we're ready. On your mark. The human ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, emerging near the debris field. Immediately, Quan dove into the field, navigating through chunks of metal and rock with terrifying precision. The ship shook with near misses. Alarms blared, but Quan's hands never hesitated. Contact in 30 seconds, Day announced. 3 raider ships, just as reported. They've spotted us. One of the raider vessels broke off from the civilian transport to investigate. The human ship was smaller, appeared damaged, looked like easy prey. The raider approached confidently. That confidence lasted exactly 10 seconds. Hai fired their weapons with surgical precision. The first shot disabled the raider's shield generator. The second hit their engine controls. The third took out their weapons array. 3 shots, 3 critical hits. The raider ship was crippled, drifting. Target neutralized, Hai reported coolly. moving to engage Ship 2. On the luminous dawn, the crew watched in stunned silence. Moore's tactical display showed the human ship moving through the debris field like it was dancing. Impossible angles, insane speeds, maneuvers that should have resulted in collisions, but somehow didn't. How are they doing that? Fleeks whispered. Deathworld reflexes, Velthari said quietly. They evolved to dodge predators, avoid falling rocks, escape dangers we can't imagine. This is just another survival situation to them. The second raider ship tried to use the debris for cover, thinking they could ambush the humans. It was a fatal mistake. They predicted their position based on gravitational readings and mass displacement. Quan positioned their ship perfectly. Hai fired through a gap in the debris that shouldn't have been navigable. Another raider crippled. The third raider captain finally understood what they were facing. This wasn't prey, this was a predator. They tried to flee. Luminous dawn, can you intercept Raider 3? Hai asked overcomes. Negative, Moore responded. They're too fast for us. Then we'll herd them to you, Day said. Stand by. The human ship emerged from the debris field at full speed, chasing the fleeing raider. Quan pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, closing the distance. When they were in range, Hai didn't fire at the raider, she fired at the space around it, creating a pattern of weapons fire that forced the raider to change course. Again and again, the humans guided the fleeing ship, herding it like predators chasing prey, right into the luminous dawn's weapons range. Now, Captain. Hai called, Velthari gave the order. His crew fired, and the raider's shields collapsed. The pirate ship was disabled. The battle was over. Total elapsed time, 7 minutes. The civilian transport was safe. The raiders were crippled, but alive, ready for galactic authorities to arrest. And the human ship, battered and barely holding together, limped back to the luminous dawn. When the 3 humans boarded the alien vessel, they found the entire crew waiting. Velthari approached them slowly. I've never seen anything like that, he said. That level of skill, coordination, precision under pressure. You fought like you'd done it 1,000 times. We practiced 1,000 times, Hai corrected. Every simulation we could imagine. Every scenario we could prepare for. Not because we wanted to fight, but because we might need to. That's the difference. You could have died, Flick said, her voice shaking. Yes, Quan agreed. But 300 civilians would definitely have died if we did nothing. Our risk versus their certainty. The math was simple. They stretched, wincing. Though I won't lie, I'm going to be sore tomorrow. That was intense. Dr. Thenna scanned them immediately. You pushed your bodies to extreme limits. The stress hormones in your systems are at dangerous levels. They'll regulate naturally, Hai assured her. Give us a few hours. We've been through worse. Velthari shook his head in wonder. I need to know, did you ever doubt you could win? The 3 humans looked at each other. Finally, they spoke. Of course we doubted. Doubt is healthy. It makes you careful. But doubt doesn't mean surrender. We assessed the situation, calculated our chances, and decided those chances were good enough. Then we committed fully. Half-hearted efforts get you killed. Full commitment gives you a chance. You fought not because you were fearless, but because it was necessary. Velthari said slowly, understanding. Exactly, Hai confirmed. Fear tells you something is dangerous. Courage is doing it anyway when it matters. Those civilians mattered. Their children mattered. Their lives mattered. So we acted. That's what Earth teaches you, that sometimes you have to face the danger because the alternative is watching innocents suffer. In the days that followed, word of the incident spread through galactic channels. The civilian transport crew told their story of rescue. The raider prisoners spoke in terrified whispers, about the small ship that fought like nothing they'd encountered. And Captain Velthari filed his report with Galactic Command. "Humanity is dangerous," he wrote. "They come from a world that weaponized evolution itself. Their capabilities in combat, crisis management, and survival situations exceed anything in our database. But here's what matters. They're dangerous in defense of others, not in conquest of them. They could have killed the raiders easily. They disabled them instead. They could have fled to safety. They risked themselves for strangers instead. Earth made them strong, but it also made them compassionate. They know suffering because they've experienced it. They value life because they fought to preserve it. They're warriors, yes, but warriors with hearts. I recommend full diplomatic relations with humanity, not because we need their strength, though we do, but because we need their wisdom. They've learned to survive the unsurvivable, and they're willing to teach us. That's the gift of Deathworlders, not their danger, but their devotion to protecting others." Months later, the three humans stood on the bridge of their repaired ship, ready to make the journey home. Captain Hai, Engineer Quan, and Navigator Day had spent their time teaching, training, and sharing everything they knew with their alien friends. "Thank you for everything," Hai said to Velthari. "You saved our lives. You gave us a chance when you didn't have to. You saved 300 people when you didn't have to," Velthari countered. "I think we're even." He paused. "Will you tell your people about us?" "Of course," they said. "We'll tell them we met an amazing species who showed us kindness. We'll tell them the galaxy is full of good people worth protecting. And we'll tell them that out here, we're not alone anymore," Quan added. "That there are friends among the stars." As the human ship prepared to depart, Velthari watched them through the viewport. So small, so dangerous, so fundamentally good. Earth had forged them in fire, pressure, and hardship. But it hadn't made them cruel. It had made them strong enough to be gentle, powerful enough to be protective, dangerous enough to be trusted. The galaxy had discovered humanity. And humanity, he thought, would change everything not through conquest, but through the simple act of showing what survivors from a Deathworld could become when given a chance. They could become the best of us, he realized, not despite their origins, but because of them. The human ship engaged its engines and jumped faster than light speed, carrying 3 Deathworlders home. But they left behind something precious: hope. Hope that strength and compassion could coexist. Hope that danger and decency weren't opposites. Hope that the galaxy, with all its diverse species and worlds, could learn from each other and grow stronger together. Earth had sent its children to the stars. And the stars, Velthari knew, would never be the same.